They thought I would sit still. They thought I would bow my head, be humble, and swallow all the sarcasm like I always did. They thought that just because I was the quietest person in the family, the one who never made a big deal out of it, they could drag me out to the biggest family dinner of the year and make a fool of me. But this time, they were wrong, and they will never forget the day they learned that lesson. In the most unforgettable way possible. Welcome to Twisted Justice, where seemingly simple stories take unexpected turns. Here, we tell real stories from the Reddit community, especially those involving families, where love, conflict, and justice collide, creating moments that are both emotional and deeply satisfying. Each episode is a journey, from the silence of being ignored to the moment of breaking out when the truth is revealed. And today's episode is a perfect example. The story begins on a day that couldn't be more normal. An intimate dinner like every year, with grandparents, uncles, cousins. Long wooden tables are set up close together in the grand dining room of my grandparents' house. Laughter and chatter fill the house. The smell of traditional food wafts through the house, and old family stories are told over and over again. But there's one thing that's different this year. I feel a strange, lingering feeling, like something is being staged. I'm not the standout in the family. I don't make as much money as my oldest brother. I'm not as articulate as my cousin. I'm not the type to post happy family photos on Facebook. To most of my relatives, I'm normal, a sort of supporting character in the story they're writing about themselves. So when dinner had just begun and my brother suddenly stood up to raise his glass, tapped me on the shoulder, and said something that silenced the room, I knew. Today, I was no longer an outsider. He smiled, but there was something cold and empty in that smile. Everyone, he said, we all know this kid is always secretly moving forward. But does anyone know what he's really doing? Or is he just pretending to be busy to avoid facing the truth? The room was silent for a few seconds. A few people chuckled. A few exchanged knowing glances. I felt like a prey cornered, where the spotlight was on, where familiar people suddenly became judges. Why did he do this? Why today? When everyone was present, I understood. This wasn't just a tease. This was a public handling, a carefully prepared insult, disguised as a bro joke. And the worst part, the whole family was watching. I heard him talk about my failures, about the projects I never finished, about the relationships I didn't last long. And then, a few people started to chime in. Yeah, I wonder. A voice from the next table said. What university did you study? A relative sarcastically said. And so, like a guided wave, the taunts began to flow. I just sat there. No resistance. No response. No expression. Because I knew. I didn't need to scream. No need to argue. No need to justify. Because I had something they didn't expect. A truth that weighed more than all the attacks put together. You see, silence doesn't mean weakness. Some people choose to stay quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know words only have weight when spoken at the right time, in the right place. And that night, when I stood up, pulled out my phone, opened my email, and made public what my family couldn't believe, I reclaimed my voice. I didn't need to scream to silence them. I just needed the truth. And this time, I was the one who closed the deal. If you've ever experienced a moment of being belittled by those closest to you, if you've ever been subtly humiliated amid fake laughter, then today's story may touch you more deeply than you think. Because sometimes, the biggest slap isn't a punch, but a truth that no one dares to face. And now, let's take Twisted Justice back to that memorable moment. A family meal, where they tried to make me bow my head. But in the end, they bowed their heads. The story begins here. My family has an unchangeable tradition. Once a year, All the relatives on both sides of the family gather at my grandparents' house to hold a reunion party at the end of the year. If it's not Christmas, it's my grandfather's birthday, or some other holiday big enough that no one can find an excuse to be absent. No matter how far away you are, where you live, or what you do, you have to be there that day. To outsiders, this may seem like a wonderful thing, a type of strong, traditional family culture. But to me, it always feels suffocating, as if I were forced to step into a pre-written play, and I was the most obscure character in the entire script. My family is not the affectionate and cozy type of family. Everything here is measured by achievements, status, and image. My brother, Kevin, is the greatest pride. He is talented, handsome, has a stable job in finance, is married to a well-matched wife, has 2 lovely children, and always knows how to express himself in a way that the elders in the family like. As for me, I am the youngest, the one who in their eyes is still unstable, immature, lacking direction, even though I am over 30. I work in the creative industry, an ambiguous and unappreciated field in a family that is accustomed to pragmatic thinking, tradition, and clear measures of success such as degrees, positions, and assets. My parents, although not saying it, always have a clear bias. When Kevin bought his first house, the whole family held a party to celebrate. They called it the pride of the family. When I launched my first creative product, no one asked. When Kevin showed off his new family photo on Facebook, people liked, shared, and called him the ideal model. When I post a few lines about a personal project, people go silent, or worse, ask me if I'm doing okay. But I'm used to it. I've learned to stay out of their spotlight. I don't need compliments. I don't need validation. At least, that's what I tell myself. But there's a limit to everything. Every year, the family dinner is held at my grandparents' house, an old-fashioned house in the suburbs where everyone grew up, argued, reconciled, and hurt each other. It's where the past and the present collide, where fond memories mingle with unhealed wounds. The long dining table in the living room is where meals take place, but also where implicit judgments are made. There, people don't just eat. They compare their children, allude to those who are absent, tell stories about their own successes, accidentally but intentionally. My cousin Lisa, once a good student and good daughter, is now a university lecturer. Whenever she speaks, people listen as if they were listening to a politician. My brother-in-law David doesn't talk much, but when he does, he delves into intellectual topics. And then there are my aunts, uncles, and distant relatives, each in their own way, but all contributing to maintaining a family ecosystem of norms, where exposure and implicit judgment are mixed together. In that context, I am just a small dot. It's not that I didn't try to fit in. In fact, there was a time when I thought that if I tried to be like them, I would be accepted. I worked in an office. I took a graduate course because my family advised me to. I tried to marry someone I knew was not right for me, all just to stop them seeing me as different. But after many years, I realized I was living someone else's life. And I stopped. I chose to be true to myself. I turned to freelancing, chose creative projects, lived alone, read more and talked less. For me, that was freedom. For them, it was instability. From the moment I started going off script, I became the target of sarcasm. At first, it was just a few gentle sentences. Aren't you afraid of missing out? Do you make enough money doing that? Do your parents still support you financially? But gradually, it turned into kicks under the table, looks of pity, half-hearted laughter. And the leader of all of that, Kevin wasn't evil. He simply believed he was right. In his eyes, I was wasting my life. And so, he felt it was his responsibility to pull me back to reality. Every time we met, he accidentally asked me if I was doing a stable-paying job. He talked about investing, real estate, and educating his children. as if he wanted to prove that he was a real adult while I was still a dreaming child. I had tried to ignore it for many years. But this year was different. This year, I came to the party with a completely different mindset. Not because I had achieved great success. Not because I had anything to brag about. But because I knew that I didn't need anyone's recognition to feel my worth. I came with a calmness and a truth that they didn't expect. Because in the past year, while they were busy laughing and judging me, I had accomplished something great. I didn't brag. I didn't post it online. I didn't send them a text message telling them the news. I just did it quietly. And on the day they planned to make me the butt of jokes during the family meal, I was the one with the strongest card. My family's relationship has never been normal. Underneath the harmonious exterior lies a web of expectations, rivalries, and prejudices. Everyone wears a mask. The successful have to maintain an image, the less prominent have to avoid attention. But I'm tired of wearing a mask. And during that meal, when I decided to take off my mask and let them see who I really was, that was when the whole family's mask fell off. They thought I would remain silent. They thought I had nothing to say in return. But they forgot. The quietest person is often the best observer. And when that person speaks up, that word is no longer a protest, but the final blow. I still remember the feeling of walking into my grandparents' house that afternoon. The smell of traditional food, roast meat, cakes, cinnamon, and ginger, hung in the air as if it were the same every year. Almost everyone was there. Laughter and chatter, the clinking of glasses, the familiar greetings. It was all the same every year. A mask of perfect politeness that everyone had grown accustomed to wearing. I walked in, carrying a small, simply wrapped gift. Not fancy, not expensive, but enough to show that I still respected the family traditions, even though the feeling of alienation had never gone away. Before I could touch the kitchen doorknob, I heard Kevin's voice echoing from the living room. His voice, as usual, was louder than necessary, on purpose. This year I invested in 3 more properties in the west of the city. Prices are going up. Knowing how to seize opportunities is really important. The whole room burst into applause. My uncle whistled. A few of my aunts exclaimed. That kid was really good from a young age. I walked in just as a light round of applause broke out. Kevin saw me. His expression changed slightly. Not unpleasantly, nor warmly. Just enough of a change to make me feel, the supporting role has arrived. Oh, the youngest is finally here. He walked over and patted me on the shoulder. Not a friendly pat, but more like a coach testing the weakest student on the team. How have you been? Still doing what freelance creative work? I smiled and nodded. Yeah, I'm still doing content projects. I've been collaborating with a podcast company lately. It's been going well. Oh, podcasts. Kevin raised his eyebrows, turning to everyone. I thought everyone was doing podcasts. Even freshmen were doing them. The room chuckled. Not loudly, not maliciously, but enough to make my heart clench. Anyway, Kevin continued, are you still living in that rented apartment? I remember you saying you were thinking about buying a house last year. I nodded again. Still looking. The market is volatile, so I want to wait for the right time. Kevin shrugged. Yeah, everyone has their own way. But if you wait too long, you'll be passive. You have to know when to jump on the right wave. No one said anything to defend me. They all just smiled and nodded along with Kevin's logic, as if he was the one leading the room. At that moment, it was clear to me. No matter what I said, people would still choose to listen to him. They didn't care about my story. They only cared about what evidence I had to prove that I was okay. Throughout that evening, the spearheads gradually turned towards me. At one point, Uncle Hai asked, "Why didn't you bring anyone home this year? Are you still single?" Then Aunt Tam said, I heard that the creative industry is very unstable. Are you planning to apply for a stable company? The words were like sharp blades, disguised as kindness. And what hurt me the most were my parents. They didn't defend me. They were silent. My mother just smiled wryly, then changed the subject. My father looked at his phone, pretending not to hear. Their silence was worse than the attacks. It confirmed one thing. They agreed with what others said about me. Dinner began. Everyone sat around the long table. I, like every year, was assigned to sit in the corner of the table, far from the center. Kevin sat in the middle, like an unwilling boss. And so, the drama continued. Lisa, my cousin, started to show off about her new research published in a scientific journal. Everyone was amazed. Kevin interrupted by saying that his company was collaborating with a research institute and could help Lisa connect. Both of them laughed and talked as if this was a networking event and not a family meal. Then it was my turn, a brief moment, when Antu turned to ask, "What about you? Is there anything new?" Before I could answer, Kevin interrupted. "Maybe she is still looking for creative inspiration. Sometimes the more you have nothing, the easier it is to call it freedom." Laughter rang out. This time louder, deeper, and sharper. I sat there, hands clenched on my thighs. I didn't want to talk back. I didn't want to get angry, but I couldn't stay silent forever. I looked straight at Kevin and said softly, "I have a lot to tell you, but I think for the sake of this peaceful meal, it's best if I don't interrupt your talk show." The room was silent for a few seconds. Then Kevin sneered, "Oh good, I'm starting to have a sense of humor." No one defended me. Once again, the isolation was evident. I turned to my father. "Dad, are you okay with people making fun of me?" My father looked up confused. "Come on, don't make a big deal out of it. People are just joking." My mother interjected. "You should learn to laugh with people too. Family." I smiled faintly. Family. Those two words were so heavy. After dinner, everyone gathered in the living room to exchange gifts. Children were running around. Adults were chatting animatedly. I sat quietly in a corner, watching. Then Kevin walked over and sat down next to me. "You know," he began, "I'm not saying this to upset you. I think it's time for you to get serious. Your parents don't say anything, but I know they worry. When will you ever settle down if you keep living like this?" I didn't respond. "Look at me," he continued. "I'm not bragging, but I have a family, a house, a stable job. I don't have much time to think about my passion. I do it because I know what I need to do." I looked at him. Then I asked, "Do you think stability is the only goal in life?" Kevin shrugged. "At least it should be a priority. You can't live like a lost person forever." I laughed, not with joy, but because I saw clearly one thing. Kevin really didn't understand. He didn't understand that not everyone wants to live a life according to a pre-written script. He didn't understand that some people need to write their own scripts, even if it's difficult, even if it's lonely. He didn't understand, but I did, and I knew. The time for everyone to understand was coming soon, because this year, I had prepared. When it came to the speech, a tradition in my family, where each member shares a few year-end summaries, Kevin was naturally the first to volunteer. He stood in the middle of the room, a glass of wine in his hand, talking about his achievements, his lessons about investing, about time management, about being a father. Everyone listened, nodding. When it was my turn, someone blurted out, "Okay, now for the inspirational part." Laughter rang out again. I stood up, slowly, looking around the room. "Maybe," I began, "people think I have nothing to tell, because I don't have a long track record. No house, no wife, no kids. I don't invest in anything." A few people chuckled, but I continued. This year I completed something important. A project that took me over 2 years to work on. I didn't tell anyone because I wanted it to be judged on its merits, not by prejudice. The room quieted, and if anyone's interested, it just got the rights to a major platform to make a movie. I wrote the script, and that's why I have a little gift for my family. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a stack of papers. Here's the certificate of purchase of my grandparents' childhood home, where Dad grew up. I've been renovating it for the past 3 months, and here's what it looks like. I opened my iPad and showed the photo to everyone. The room was completely silent. Kevin stopped laughing. No one laughed. My mother took the paper with trembling hands. My father was speechless. The whole family looked at me, for the first time, with completely different eyes. I didn't need to say anything more. The conflict started with contempt, but ended with the truth. There are moments in life when one cannot foresee the power of silence, but sometimes silence itself is the most resonant. And that moment, that fateful Christmas Eve, was when I realized, when a family chooses to make one member the subject of gossip, the one who is being overlooked is sometimes the one who holds the trump card. The story begins with seemingly ordinary details. The festive dinner, the fake laughter, the gentle sarcasm under the guise of family concern. But deep down, I knew. This was more than just a meeting. This was a stage. And I, as every year, was relegated to the supporting role, the role of failed but good child. Laughter erupted every time Kevin told of his latest exploits. A real estate deal worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, a triple profit stock deal, or even his generous help for the homeless with financial advice. Everything about him was the perfect scenario that the whole family was ready to swallow. Because he was successful, he was stable, and me, I was the child in search of himself. And as the conversation turned to me, I knew right away. This year, they had prepared a public humiliation. Did you see that? Uncle Hi's voice rang out, full of sarcasm. In the past, the youngest son used to write all day long, saying that he wanted to be an artist. And now he still continues to write, right? A light laugh rang out. Then Kevin immediately added, "It's okay, Uncle, if you keep writing, a book will eventually come out. If the publisher is merciful enough." The whole table burst into laughter. Someone even nudged me. "Don't be angry. I'm just kidding." I just smiled, not because it was funny, but because I had predicted everything. And that night, I was ready. After dinner, the family held a year-end honor. A little game that Aunt had come up with 3 years ago. Everyone would stand up to share their achievements, and the family would vote for the most impressive person of the year. The prize? A photo hung on the family's honor wall. Kevin had won 2 years in a row. This year, Kevin couldn't hide his smug smile. He stood up first, talking non-stop about the new investment, the big client he had just signed, and the company's expansion plans. When he finished, he turned to me, winked. "Your turn, my creative freedom." I stood up, looked around the room. Everyone's eyes were waiting for something funny, or at least boring, to continue the joke. But I was prepared, and I had nothing to lose. Thank you, everyone. I know I'm not the brightest star in this family. I know what it's like to be compared, to be judged by standards that don't belong to me. But this year, I decided to share something that no one has ever known before. I pulled an envelope out of my pocket, quietly placed it on the table. This is the transfer contract for the old villa on Riverside Road. You may not have heard of it, but it used to belong to our great-grandfather, and it was sold many years ago. The room began to buzz. I bought it 8 months ago. With the money I earned from a film project I wrote the script for. That project was bought by a big production company, and they just officially started filming the first season last month. Kevin frowned. My parents were stunned. Aunt Oud exclaimed, "What movie is it?" I looked at everyone. Then I opened my phone and played the trailer. The room was dead silent. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then everyone started to realize. My name was clearly visible under the words creator, executive writer. This is Echoes of the River, picked up by Netflix for next fall. I've been working on it for the past 2 years, and the first payment I received was enough for me to buy back the villa. As part of the legacy our grandparents left me. Kevin was stunned. His face paled. Aunt Oot slumped down in her chair. But that wasn't all. And one more thing, I said, my voice calm. I don't mean to brag. It's just, I'm inviting everyone to a New Year's lunch at the new villa, which I've just finished renovating. And maybe if you want, this year's honor roll, I'll leave it blank. The room fell silent. For the first time in years, I saw people looking at me not with pity or suspicion, but with surprise and respect. Kevin was stunned. He stood up, awkwardly smiling. "Oh wow, I didn't know you," I interrupted. "It's okay. I'm used to it. Not everyone needs to know before they're ready to believe." My mother's eyes welled up with tears. My father looked at me as if he were seeing me for the first time. Auntie Oot was the first to clap. Then the others followed suit. And in that moment I knew. No need to scream. No need to argue. The biggest twist, the real shock, is when the truth comes out like a slap in the face to prejudice. It's not Kevin who wins. It's me, the despised one, who quietly overcomes all the contemptuous eyes to come back with a truth that silences the whole room. The atmosphere in the room was still filled with shock. The eyes were no longer contemptuous, no longer mocking. Instead, they were quiet, hesitant, and somewhat apprehensive. For the first time in many years, I was no longer a shadow at the family party. I was the center, but not because of scandal, but because of the truth. The first twist, that I was the one who bought my great-grandfather's villa, thanks to the royalties from the TV series project, was enough to make the whole family fall silent. But that was not the end. I knew clearly that if I wanted to truly restore my honor, and more importantly, end the years of being looked down upon, I needed a decisive action. An action that would not only surprise them, but make them change. I had prepared for that. The next afternoon, I sent official invitations to each family member. Not via text message, but by hand, hard paper, stamped with red wax. The content was as formal as an official party. New Year's lunch at Riverside Villa, where memories revive and truth is put back in its place. Everyone came. No one dared to be absent. The name Echoes of the River. After the trailer made them search for information online. Some people discovered my name on IMDb. Some even knew that the movie had just made it to the list of 10 most anticipated TV series of the year. Kevin arrived late, and as usual, still in a neat suit, shiny shoes. But I could see clearly. His eyes were no longer as confident as before. There was something hesitant, as if he was trying to read the thoughts of a younger brother he once thought would always stand at his feet. That ancient villa was renovated by me not only with money, but also with memories. The paintings that my great-grandfather used to hang, the old objects that my mother mentioned in her memories. I restored them all. The space was both solemn and cozy, like a reminder of their roots, of the values they had forgotten or deliberately rejected. The lunch took place in an unusual atmosphere. No noise, no laughter or chatter. Everyone seemed reserved. When dessert was served, I stood up and raised my glass. I thank everyone for coming. Today, it is not only a reunion, it is also an opportunity for me to pay off the spiritual debt that my family has left over the years. All eyes turned to me. I walked to the cabinet next to the table, opened it, and took out a file. "This is part of the project I didn't share yesterday," I said, putting the file down. "Here is the next production plan. This time, I am the director, screenwriter, and producer. The whole room was dead silent. The new film project is called Broken Branches. The plot? A three-generation family where the youngest son is always looked down upon, ridiculed by his successful older brother, and considered a failure by his parents. Until one day, he turns everything upside down. Uncle Ba laughed dryly. "What a coincidence." I looked at him and slowly replied, "No coincidence, Uncle, because that's exactly our family story. Every detail, from the insults at the dinner table to the way people used to call me a dreamer living in the clouds, it's all in the script." The buzz began. "Wait," Antut said. "Are you planning to expose the whole family on TV?" I looked straight at him. "No exposing, just telling the truth. And this time, the truth will be known to millions of people." Kevin stood up. "You can't do that. This is private. Family business. You have no right to put it on film." I walked towards him, handing him a smaller stack of papers. "Here are the fully altered image rights. No one can sue. The characters have different names. The setting has been changed, but the story is the same. And the production company has approved the content. Filming will begin in 3 months." He blushed furiously. "Are you doing this for revenge?" I smiled. "Not revenge. It's to end a chapter of injustice that has lasted too long. I don't want to live in the dark anymore. I choose the light, and let it shine through the lies that everyone has promoted." My mother burst into tears. She couldn't speak. My father just looked at me, his eyes full of remorse. Kevin sat down, stunned. I saw it clearly. He understood. Power now was no longer money or titles. It was stories. It's true, and I'm in control of it. A week later, the first article appeared on a film news site. Echoes of the River Writer's new script reveals a shocking family story based on true stories. Reddit exploded. People shared their feelings, recounting their own stories. Thousands of comments sent support. And somewhere, those who had been the overlooked child found their voice. My family was silent for a long time after that day. No one dared to call. No one showed any concern. But they knew. This time, I was no longer the resigned youngest. I was the one who rewrote the story. And if they wanted to appear, they had to learn to treat me like a human being. 3 months later, Kevin texted me. It was simply, "I think I should apologize." I didn't reply. But I knew the apology wasn't for me, but for himself. Because in the end, he realized the person he tried to drown was the one who pulled his whole family up from the mire of prejudice. After all, when all the lights were off, when the hustle and bustle had passed, and the whispers in the old villa were only memories, I sat alone on the porch, holding a cup of hot tea, looking out at the river that was quietly flowing. That stream, like life, never stops. It flows, carrying with it what needs to be let go, to make room for something new, for revival. I told my story, not for revenge, but for liberation, to liberate myself. The youngest child who was once looked down upon, who was silent because he thought his voice was not important, but also to liberate those like me out there, those who are sitting alone amidst ridicule, those who feel they are not good enough, not talented enough, not like what they want. When I decided to turn my trauma into a story, when I brought the truth to the screen instead of burying it under a layer of hypocrisy, I opened a door, not to step outside, but to invite people into my inner world, a place where I was forgotten, abandoned, but also where I learned to love myself, to heal each cut with honesty. That film, Broken Branches, was not only a commercial success, it became an emotional phenomenon. Every day, I receive hundreds of messages from viewers all over the world. Some say they burst into tears because they felt understood for the first time. Some confess that they treated their younger sister or brother badly, and now they want to do it again. There are families who start talking again after years of silence, only because a certain scene made them realize there are things that cannot be ignored forever. And in many of those messages, there is a line that I will never forget. Thank you for telling our story, even though we never dared to say it out loud. At that moment, I realized what I was doing was not just rewriting the past, it was empowering the right to tell, to live, to feel, and to hurt. No more hiding, no more pretending to be strong. In this society, there are too many people who are forced to stand up without ever crying. They are looked down upon just because they do not follow the path that the majority thinks is right. I used to be like that. I used to think I was useless because I did not earn as much money as Kevin. I used to feel small when compared to Uncle Bo's children. People with impressive titles. Everywhere they went, they were introduced with a list of achievements. I used to feel ashamed when someone asked, "What are you doing now?" Because I knew that if I said writing a script, I would receive a look of pity. But now I know, true value does not lie in numbers or titles, but in the ability to dare to be true to ourselves. The greatest revenge is not to tear someone down, but to rise above them, surpass them with yourself, and make them look back at themselves. Not to make them jealous, but to make them understand. Understand that success should never be measured by a single yardstick. Each person is a branch of a tree, some straight, some bent, some broken, but each has the right to grow in its own way. My family is different now. They haven't changed completely. No one changes after just one shock. But they have learned to listen. Kevin no longer interrupts me when I speak. My father, for the first time in years, said 3 words to me: "I'm proud." And my mother, the woman who used to stay silent when I was looked down upon, wrote me a letter. In it, she told me that she had been treated the same way when she was young. She had also had small dreams, but they were crushed because they were unrealistic. She apologized for accidentally letting that happen to me. I read the letter, and I forgive. Not because they deserve it, but because I deserve to be at peace. Dear friend, if you are reading this, you may be somewhere on that journey. Maybe you are the one who is misunderstood, the one who is ignored at every meal, the one who the whole family calls useless. Or maybe you are hiding your true dreams just because you are afraid of being laughed at. If so, I hope you remember, your truth is always valuable. And if no one is listening, stand up and tell it yourself. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for recognition before you start. Because the very act of starting is the way to recognize yourself. Twisted Justice, our channel, was born for that reason. To tell the stories that society often silences. To speak for the voices that are not heard. To let you know, you are not alone. We believe that every injustice, no matter how small, deserves to be illuminated. Every pain, no matter how hidden, deserves to be called out. And every person, no matter how overlooked, deserves to be respected. If you have ever been put down by your family, ridiculed by your friends, forced to live a life you did not choose, our story is for you. And if you are ready to stand up and say, "I have had enough," let us be the place for you to start. If you feel that today's story is not only a personal experience, but also contains a profound lesson, please take a moment to like this video. Each like is not only a support, but also a way for the YouTube algorithm to bring this story to more people. People who may need a reminder, a ray of hope, or simply a feeling of being understood. Don't forget to click the subscribe button to join the Twisted Justice community, where real stories, real emotions, and justice are inspired by seemingly small things. And finally, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Because who knows, the next story might be the missing piece in your life. Thank you for accompanying us. Twisted Justice will always be here, continuing to tell the slices of life that society often keeps silent. See you in the next video.